Hello students, today we'll discuss on the topic judgment of training load. So let us start with introduction. The word training in its broad sense refers to an organized and systematic instructional process which aims at enhancing man's ability with regard to physical, psychological and intellectual aspects. In the field of sports, training is a process which involves preparation of a sportsman to attain highest level of sports performance. To improve sports performance, one has to regularly and systematically perform a variety of exercises. Performance of a sports person improves as a result of application of training load. The frequency of training of sports person depends upon the training age and performance level. A beginner trains 3 to 5 times per week, whereas a high performer trains 8 to 12 times or even more times in a week. In order to ensure that the load of training in a training unit guarantees development of performance, the load has to be properly controlled and regulated. It is very important for the coach to know how much load he is giving to the sports person during a training session. The external load, that is, type, intensity and volume of exercise, can be measured and controlled, and amount should be only the optimum internal load, that is, bodily response to exercises of the sports person. Only in this way the best result can be achieved. Unlike external load, the internal load is not easy to determine because the coach must find out at what level the organs and systems of the body are working and what is the degree of fatigue. Now let us discuss means of judgment of training load. The judgment of training load can be done by using the following means. Means of judgment of training load: objective means, subjective means. Now let us discuss objective means. The objective means of judgment of training load involve assessment of physiological and biochemical variables during and immediately after the training schedule. Some of the objective means of judgment of load which can be effectively used by a coach are: number 1, body weight; 2, pulse rate; number 3, intensity of training load, that is, the rate of doing work in a training session; number 4, volume of training load, that is, total amount of work done in a training session; number 5, VO2 max, that is, maximum volume of oxygen; number 6, blood lactate; number 7, blood urea; 8, iron concentration, that is, acid-base balance; number 9, electrolyte concentration; number 10, PO2 and PCO2 in blood; number 11, blood enzyme, that is, SGOT and SGPT; number 12, ATP, adenosine triphosphate, and CP, creatine phosphate concentration; number 13, glucose and fatty acids; number 14, hormonal level, example, glucagon, insulin and thyroxine. Subjective means. Since objective means of judgment of training load need specialized equipment, apparatus and scientific procedures, the coach has to invariably rely on the subjective means. The accuracy with which subjective means can be used for judgment of training load depends upon: number A, observational ability of the coach; B, knowledge of the coach with respect to various sports science; number C, knowledge of coach with respect to likely effect of various training means and method. D. Experience of the coach. E. Thorough knowledge about sportsperson's behavior. F. Knowledge about the personality of sportsperson. The amount and type of training load depends upon the effects desired. Administration of optimum load causes fatigue, and if fatigue can be correctly measured during and after training, the degree of load can be correctly assessed. Since fatigue cannot be directly assessed, the effect of training load has to be judged through its symptoms, and they are shown in the table. Symptom: sweating. For less fatigue, that is low load, according to temperature, high to medium. For high fatigue, that is optimum load, professed sweating, especially of upper body. For very high fatigue, that is critical load, too much sweating, also of lower extremity. For symptoms after critical load, sweating during night. Symptom: movement execution. For less fatigue, low load, proper movement execution according to the learning stage. For high fatigue, optimum load, beginning of errors, decreased accuracy. For very high fatigue, that is critical load, poor coordination, weak movements, persistent inaccuracy, and errors in the movement execution. For symptoms after critical load, poorly coordinated and weak movement for next 24 to 48 hours. Symptom: concentration. For less low load, normal, no nervousness able to follow, instructions able to concentrate on demonstration, etc. For high fatigue, optimum load, unattentive to explanations, decreased perception ability, unable to differentiate between finer point. For very high fatigue, that is critical load, strongly decreased concentration ability, nervousness, slow reaction, absent-mindedness. For symptoms after critical load, inattentive and unable for movement correction for the next 24 to 48 hours. Symptom: for general feeling. For less fatigue, low load, good, no difficulty in fulfilling the training demands. High fatigue, optimum load, muscular weakness, breathing difficulty, decreasing performance. For very high fatigue, that is critical load, pain in muscles and joints, dizziness, feeling of vomiting, burning feeling in the chest. For symptoms after critical load, disturbed sleep, persisting muscle and joint pain, weakness, reduced physical ability, higher pulse even after 24 hours. Symptom: for motivation and mood performance readiness. For less fatigue, that is low load, good motivation, wants to continue the training, pleasant mood, happiness. For high fatigue, optimum load, reduce activity, desire for long recovery pauses, reduce motivation but still wants to continue the training. For very high fatigue, that is critical load, wants to stop, tendency to isolate, obstinate, aggressive towards coach and colleagues. For symptoms after critical load: no desire for coming to training again, indifferent, resist demands of the coach, depressed, doubt the value of training, finds excuse to avoid training. Symptom: for color of skin, for less fatigue, there is low load, slightly red. For high fatigue, there is optimum load, strongly red. For very high fatigue, there is critical load, very strongly red or occurrence of paleness. For symptoms after critical load: persisting paleness for several days. In order to correctly and reliably judge load, the coach should rely on more than one symptom of fatigue. Some of the symptoms, namely sweating and color of the skin, are not very reliable because they may depend upon the temperature and color of the skin of the sportsman and therefore are to be cautiously used. Both training and competition loads enhance sports performance. Administering appropriate means of recovery can ensure quicker recovery and make a sportsman capable of undertaking more frequent loads. Recovery from training and competition loads requires considerable amount of time. Recovery can be divided into the following three phases. Phase 1. In this phase, the onset of fatigue and recovery goes on simultaneously when the training or competition is in progress. This process occurs because of resynthesis of ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate, CP, creatine phosphate, glycogen, and to some extent because of neutralization of lactic acid. Phase 2. This phase commences with the completion of the training schedule, that is cessation of physical activity, and ends with the restoration of homeostasis of the body. This phase lasts from few minutes to 2 to 3 hours. The following active recovery means can be adopted to make the recovery process faster. 1. Deep breathing exercises. 2. Intake of drinks containing carbohydrate, vitamins, salts, and minerals. Phase 3. The duration of this phase of recovery can last from many hours to several days. In this phase, the recovery is facilitated by the anabolic process. Substances such as enzymes and proteins which get depleted in the process of undertaking the load get resynthesis. Factors affecting pace of recovery. The pace of recovery is affected by the following factors. 1. Type of training load. 2. Health and fitness status. 3. Rest and sleep. 4. Good diet. 5. Daily routine. 6. Total load of the day. 7. Stimulus intensity and stimulus volume. Means of recovery. The means which can be effective in accelerating recovery can be divided into the following groups. 1. Training methodology related means. 2. Nutritional means. 3. Physiotherapeutic means. 4. Psychological means. Now let us discuss training methodology related means. Among all the 4 above groups, training methodology related means are the most important means for ensuring quick recovery. In fact, other means of recovery should support The training methodical means. The following methods of training are used during the training of different games and sports. 1. Session of training. A training session should be carefully worked out for ensuring recovery. The following factors should be kept in mind. A. Warm-up. B. Exercise sequence. C. Sequence of performance tasks. D. Phases of rest between repetition of load. E. Limbering down or cool down. Number 2. Cyclic process of training. The year is divided into cycles of training of varying durations. A. Macro cycle is the longest cycle and its duration is from 3 to 12 months. It is divided into preparatory, competition, and transition periods. B. The duration of mesocycle is 3 to 6 weeks. The last week of the mesocycle is devoted for recovery. C. Microcycle is the shortest of the 3 cycles and its duration is normally 1 week. On the last day of the week, complete rest is provided to ensure recovery. 2. Nutritional means. During and after training and competition, nutritional means taken in proper form and required quantity can help in ensuring faster recovery. The sportsperson should take balanced diet according to the requirements of the body and the sports for which one is training. After every training session, light liquid diet containing carbohydrates, vitamins, and minerals, that is sodium and potassium, should be consumed. Intake of drinks with by adding salt are also recommended if the sportsperson had profuse sweating during training session. It is also advised that meals should be consumed at fixed hours. 3. Physiotherapeutic means. These means are being effectively used for accelerating recovery. Different massage manipulations, sauna, ultrasound therapy, hydrotherapy, electrotherapy, etc. are helpful in quick recovery. For this means, help of a specialist should be taken in order to avoid problems. This means should be used in addition to means related to training methodology. One should avoid using them as substitute means for training methodical means. 4. Psychological means. Over the years, the psychological means have become important in helping sportsperson in attaining faster recovery. Physiological evidence shows that the recovery process is controlled by the nervous system of the body, and the psychological means help in voluntary control of the system for attaining quick recovery. Psychological means, like other means, can be used during and after training sessions for relaxation and ensuring sound sleep. Some of the important means which are being commonly used by the sportsmen are: 1. Different form of yoga. Number 2. Autogenous training. Number 3. Autosuggestion. 4. Progressive relaxation technique. And finally, let us come to the conclusion. It is very important for the coach to know how much load he is giving to the sportsperson during a training session. Performance of a sportsperson improves as a result of application of training load. The frequency of training of sportsperson depends upon the training age and performance level. The objective means of judgment of training load involve assessment of physiological and biochemical variables during and immediately after the training schedule. The objective means of judgment of training load needs specialized equipments, apparatus, and scientific procedures. The coach has to invariably rely on the subjective means. The subjective means are subject to the personal judgment of the coach and hence may not always give exact information. Nevertheless, these means are very pragmatic, required no equipment and advanced techniques of measurement and analysis except for a good amount of experience from the coach. This means help in assessment of fatigue, as fatigue is a direct result of load. Fatigue is characterized by various symptoms. The coach has to simply look for these symptoms in order to find out the degree of load. Sportspersons cannot effectively undertake high loads of training unless proper means are adopted to accelerate the process of recovery. Administering appropriate means can ensure quicker recovery and make a sportsperson capable of undertaking more frequent loads. Recovery from training and competition loads requires considerable amount of time. Thank you.